Dr. Pawan.
Thank you for the Honorable Vidra sir and Honorable Vinod sir for joining us. And I'll just take a short presentation and then we'll go with the discussion session going forward. So today my topic is dive into Ramayana. I don't know, when the typing happened, when the composing happened, the dive into Ramayana was misprinted as divine into Ramayana.
Just Bala, 2 minutes. I have one announcement. The students who have come for the Ramayana school may go to the hall 2, please.
It was mistyped as divine into Ramayana. So that could be the cause of divine, or when the composer is composing it, it could be the cause of the wine. It could be any of it. Right. Myself, Rao Sankuratri, and firstly, let me thank World Ramayana Conference for giving me this opportunity. Well, what is dive into Ramayana? What is that we want to say? There are basically two things what I want to present today. One is the author's perspective. What is that this author is thinking in his mind when he's writing or jotting down the text of Ramayana? So right from Valmiki till our Gumashta ji, we have written Ramayanas. So at every generation, there is no generation which has not written Ramayana. So every generation have written Ramayana, starting from Maharshi Valmiki. So my point here is not to talk about Rama, not to talk about Ravana, not to talk about all these people, but what is that which is running in the author's mind when he's writing this? What is that he want to achieve when he's writing this text is what we're going to talk about. So by understanding the author's mindset, trying to understand the author's mindset, we'll try to discover something what he want to say, and we'll try to unlock few things. I'll take one example. Instead of taking all the others, I'll be a little restricted to my topic, Maharshi Valmiki is writing. So let us start with the first point about the writing stuff of Maharshi Valmiki. When he's writing, what is that it is running in his mind? What is that it made him to write this stuff? This is the first sloka in the first kanda, in the first sarga of Maharshi Valmiki's writing. He speaks to Narada asking multiple questions, and what he asks is there any person living today? Is there any person living today? Which means he's referring to a human who is living today, of said qualities of he's having power, he's having righteousness, gratitude, so many qualities. Especially he's asking a living creature who is living today and of having so many qualities. Basically, he's referring to Adarsha Purush. Is there anybody in this world of such great qualities? Multiple slokas come in that case. If there is someone like that, please tell me, is what he's asking. Now, why is he asking that? As an author, there are many authors here. So if we encounter a person and then we like him, we travel with him, we admire him, and then we start writing on him, it's a different story. But Valmiki, even before traveling with Ram, he decided to write something. He wanted to say something to this world. And for him to say that something to this world, he need a character with all Adarsha qualities. So he's searching for an Adarsha Purusha to tell something what he want to tell. So what is that something else other than the Ramayana he want to tell, communicate through his literature, is what we're going to discuss. So on the account, while telling the qualities of, while telling the story of an Adarsha Purusha, Valmiki is trying to tell something else. Let us dig into that. So he took Rama as the main pillar of the story, and along with the story of Rama, he weaved many other things. He added many other things into the Valmiki Ramayana. He spoke about the geography. He spoke about the geography of the world. He spoke about the politics of those days. He spoke about the history of those days. History of Rama's history. he spoke about the history of those days. He spoke about the social conditions of those days. He spoke about the women rights, women freedom. He talked so many, how they play theaters, all this stuff he spoke. He spoke about the flora and fauna in his text. He spoke about sciences of those days. He spoke about economics. He spoke about the tax systems in those days. If he's just telling the Ram story, he need not talk all these. You can see the series of what Nilesh Ogji has done on Sugriva's Atlas. When he's telling the direction, when Sugriva is sending Vanaras on different directions, he comes out of the main story. He goes for 4 sargas, only describing the geography of the land, and comes back. And when Vishwamitra is talking about astras, he comes out from the main topic and he goes explaining for about 2-3 sargas what are the astras, and then comes back. So he's involving many things along with the Ram story. What do you want to do? What do you want to tell in the Valmiki Ramayana? Basically, he is giving the encyclopedia of those days to that generation. He is revolutionizing the education system by telling the Ram story. If someone reads the Ram story of those days, which means they are finishing the entire primary education of those days. He is giving everything in that. Along with everything what encyclopedia has to give, he is also adding additional stuff of morals to the society. So, which is a little beyond the encyclopedia, and there comes Itihasa. What is Itihasa? Do we have any definition for Itihasa somewhere written either during the time of Ramayana or even after the time of Ramayana? Is there any definition to Itihasa mentioned somewhere in the scriptures? Yes. It is Dharmartha Kama Mokshanam Upadeshita Samanvitam Purva Vruktam Katayuktam Itihasam Prachakshate. It means he's talking about the things that happened, which means history and what all happened actually. And he's telling in the story format, embedding the morals with an intention of teaching. So there is an historicity element, there is a story element, there are the moral elements, and the intention is very clear to teach to the society. And the reference is from Brihid Bhagavata Mitra, and the sloka numbers are given there. When I'm giving anywhere the sloka numbers, please read a little before and after also, because from one print to another print, the sloka numbers may differ sometime. Just a disclosure, because... Right. So let us see next. Because I'm talking about Indo-Sri Lanka, I just took this character, Ravana, as an example. You may take many other characters in the Ramayana. So I'll tell you. So, is Ravana discussed in the Vaishnavite faith? Yes, he's been discussed, right? Is he being discussed in Shaivite faith? Yes. Is he being discussed overall in the Hindu culture, Hindu religion, Hindu faith? Yes. Did this character been discussed in Buddhism? Yes. Is he not discussed in Jainism? Yes. Is he not discussed in Sikhism? Yes. When all these religions spoke about the characters written in the Valmiki Ramayana, how can you attribute the whole Ramayana to one faith or practice? It is beyond the religious borders. It has nothing much to do with the religion. It is something to do with something else. What is that? If you observe, everything, if you see all these religions which are born, the faiths which are born, are likely to be born in this region of the world. Which means it has something to do with the geography of this region. It has something to do with the history of this region. Which simply means it has something to do with the culture of this land and not with anything else. There we go, that Ramayana is the cultural subject beyond the religious subject or the faith subject. And what do you mean by a cultural subject? Anything which travels from one generation to another generation is the cultural subject. If my grandparents are giving to my Great-grandparents giving to grandparents, grandparents giving to my parents, they give it to me and I give it to my next generation. That is a cultural text, cultural subject. Ramayana is a cultural subject. And if it is only within one family, it is the family's culture. But if it is among the societies across, which means it is the cultural subject of the entire society. Ramayana is the cultural subject of the entire society. Now, any subject gets into culture from various other streams. Into culture is a bigger subject. A subject can get into culture from history. A culture can get into subject from ethnicity. A subject can get into culture from religion. A subject can get into culture from your skills, your labor work, your skills, etc. Subject can get into culture just from the moral stories, even from the fairy tales, etc. So from where did Ramayana get into culture? From where? We are talking about, of course, from Itihasa, it has gone into culture. So when we're saying that it has gone from Itihasa line into culture, we need to justify that statement. I'll try to justify that statement, but before that, I'll give you an example of some other subject which has gone into culture from some other line apart from the historicity. Okay? I'll just give you an example. I hope you all have seen this story, this particular story. Everybody knows it, right? The rabbit and the tortoise. For some, I don't know in which language they spoke, and then finally they did the race, and one other lost, and there is a moral story there. Now, how can a rabbit and a tortoise talk, first of all? So it's all nonsense. So let us remove this story from the culture. Is it possible? So culture has various subjects. It has the moral subject also. In terms of the moral subject, sometimes the fairy tales also get into. So Itihasa is something which teaches these morals along with the historicity. Along with the historicity. And giving the moral, the dharma, the karma, the morals and principles of the life. That's how is Ramayana. Now let's go back to Ramayana. So you take any Ramayana, any version, most of them take the main route, Itihasa, and there is an element of historicity involved. So with that, we'll get to the second topic. What are we going to discover and what are you going to unlock from understanding the author's point of view and from the definition of Itihasa? So the topic what I'll be taking up is the linguistics and language connection. Linguistics and language connection. And I also take another subject, this region of the globe. Okay? The minute you saw this, you may be thinking I'm talking about Ramasetu. I'm not talking about Ramasetu. I'm talking about the entire region of that area. So that where it comes, I'm not diving into the sea there, but in that perspective, I'm diving into Ramayana. I'm not diving into the sea, but I'm diving into Ramayana, which refers to these elements. So let us try to explore this region there once. Okay? Now, if you think in the oceanography levels, etc., if the water level is going down as we go into the past, which simply means that region should not have any water. Which means India and Sri Lanka, in many years back, it should be a land connectivity. If it is a land connectivity, like this, which means there is no need of building a bridge at all, which also means that Sri Lanka is not Ravana Lanka. Right? Now let us go a little more deeper. So you go way back to the times of dinosaurs also, when the tectonic plates moving, India and Sri Lanka are always together and they're moving always together, which means even before the times of Himalayas being formed. Okay? And there is no water body between India and Sri Lanka in those millions of years back. So how did the water come between India and Sri Lanka? We need to find out. And do we have any references in Ramayana? Let us think. Let us think, is there any reference of water coming there where the water is not supposed to be? Is there any reference in Valmiki Ramayana? Let us see. The first reference comes in Balakanda, the first part of Valmiki Ramayana. And the situation is Maharshi Vishwamitra, the guru of Sri Ram and Lakshman, during their residential schooling with Vishwamitra. And Vishwamitra will be telling the history of these kids, history of their dynasty to these kids. And then he will be referring to King Sagar and his sons digging up the planet in different parts of the world. So he keeps digging up the land in different parts of the world, so including the Dakshin region and many other parts of the world. So why are they digging is not the question, but they have dug it. That is the main point. So in most of the places, when they have dug, it's only about the land digging. There is no reference to the water. But there is one place where they have dug, and there is also a reference to the water. And that leads to the next reference of that region. That comes in Sundarakanda, the fifth part in Valmiki. And the sloka numbers, you can find it in the left. The situation is the sea god thinking for himself to help Hanuma, who is crossing the sea. So sea god is thinking for himself that he need to help this Hanuma who is crossing the sea. So now the author's, the Itihasa point, the story element is how can a sea be a human and start thinking like the human being? That is the story element. But by telling that story element, Valmiki Maharshi is trying to give you the geography of that land. That is what we need to understand. So what is he telling? Again, he's referring to the same area that the sea, now the sea is telling. Sea is telling that it is being expanded or extended in that region, expanded or extended in that region, the place where Sagar has dug. Because the Sagars and Sagar's sons have dug, I got expanded myself, is what sea is saying. So the sea got extended because of the digging what they have done. The digging is done and the water is coming in. So where we get the next reference, the third reference. The third reference will come again in Sundarakanda itself. And that is when Mainaka, the flying mountain, communicates with Hanuma and talks about again the same region. Now how these mountains fly is again the Katha part. But what is that you want to tell about the geography is this Mainaka, the flying mountain, talks with Hanuma and tells, brother, you can take rest on me, okay, because you are going on the Ishwaku's family's duty, and the sea god instructed me to help you. And sea god is instructed me to help you because you are going on the Ishwaku family's duty. Because of that family, the sea god is actually here. He got extended here because of that. So this is the next reference. So there are series of stuff which are leading that it was land before, accepted by the Ramayana itself, and then the water got into. The next reference comes in Yuddha Kanda. When I'm making this presentation for this particular slide, I don't have the Devanagari, the Hindi version of the book, so I just picked it from my mother tongue, Telugu. Where Nala is having a conversation with Rama and telling to about sea god. So here he says, this sea god has no gratitude. He was, the very existence of him in this region is because of your family. So he should not have made you wait for so many days, or 3 days, and then when you are angry, he started giving you the solution. So he should have not done that. This guy doesn't have gratitude. So he might have done this, so he might have given the solution in the day one itself. But if you see in the earlier situations in Sundarakanda, the same sea god was trying to help Ram. So here is again the Katha Yuktam part, bringing that thing, the 3 days of tapas what Rama has done, actually says the 3 days of survey of that entire region to identify the best place to build the bridge. That is what the tapasya means. That is what Valmiki is trying to tell you. So this is the survey of the region. Well, I've given so many examples, right from Balakanda to Yuddhakanda, this reference has continuously coming. If it is just a story, the reference might have gone at only one place. And in the first, in Balakanda, only about the digging of the land, Valmiki spends around 2.5 chapters. Well, apart from Valmiki Ramayana, is there any other text talking about this? Is there any other text talking about this? Yes. We have the references from Srimad Bhagavatam. In Srimad Bhagavatam, again the same reference comes that Maharaja Saga, when he's digging up the oceans, there are 8 adjoining islands formed. The very important word is digging up the land and the islands were formed, which means the water has entered in between. Point number 1. And it doesn't talk about one island, it talks about 8 islands. In simple words, multiple islands. And there's one more quality, that they are adjoining to each other. That is very important. They are adjoining to, they are very close by. Point number 1. And if you see the names of those islands, the last 2 names refer to Sinhala and Lanka. It refers to Sinhala and Lanka. Okay? Now, Sinhala is the major spoken language in Lanka, Sri Lanka. But here, Sinhala is given different name as a separate island, and Lanka is given as a separate island. But we know Sri Lanka as a single island. Where did the other islands go? Is Sri Lanka the Lanka or the Sinhala? Which island is this? Where are the other islands gone? Now let us see the Sri Lankan map. The word adjoining is very important. Because the islands are very close by, it is a natural tendency even today, we assume Sri Lanka to be one single island. But in reality, they are a group of islands. Even today, they are a group of islands. If you little zoom, if you can just see that part, let me see if I can show you. See this the whole big island, if you see here, the Jaffna itself is an island. There is water even here. If you furthermore zoom, there is a water path even here. This entire big piece, big chunk itself is an island. And the multiple islands here. So, he is referring to the same place. So, apart from Bhagavatam, okay, enough. Let me squeeze it a little more. Do we have furthermore references on this? We have. There is a book in Telugu, very old book called Purva Gada Lahari. The text, this book is basically like a dictionary. So like how we have in dictionary, we have, we search for the word and their meanings. But this book has the words, only the words which are in the epics of Indian subcontinent. So all the names written in the epics of Indian subcontinents are jotted down in this book, and where are they referred, what is the meaning, is what this Purva Gada Lahari has. Now let us see what this Purva Gada Lahari to tell. When I searched for the word Lanka, what is the meaning of Lanka in Purva Gada Lahari, it says, this one in Telugu, but I'll just try to translate it for you in English. It says it is an island which is formed along with the other group of islands during the process of Sagar digging the Jambu Dvipa. So he refers to Lanka and Sinhala once again. So when I searched for what is the meaning of Sinhala in this particular book, it says it is an island which is formed by the digging of Jambu Dvipa by the Sagar and his sons, is what is being mentioned there.
Please sum up.
Yep.
So that
we have come to the. So what is the conclusion of the whole subject? What is the conclusion of the subject? Number 1, Ramayana has historicity. It is referring to the historical elements which happened. And Ramayana very much satisfies the definition of Itihasa, point number 2. And then Sri Lanka is Ravana Lanka, undoubtedly. And then Sinhala, the major spoken language. This is one point what we need to understand. So we have lot of astrodating happening. We have one expert of astrodating here. So either you take Mahabharata time. There are few people who say it's around 3000 BCE, but we have the expert here, Nileshokji, is saying it is around 5000 BCE, 5500 BCE. You take Ramayana, is it 7000 BCE, or the Nileshokji's version 12,200 BCE, in either of the cases. When the word Sinhala has come in Bhagavatam, which was written by Vyasa Maharshi at the time of Mahabharata was written, which simply means the Sinhala existence is definitely there during the time of Vyasa's writing. And he is referring to Ramayana. So if you consider Mahabharata happened 3000 BCE, adding the current times of 2023, which means minimum of 5,000 years old is Sinhala. And if you go to the 5,500 argument, which means it is minimum 7,500 years old. And if you go to the Ramayana argument and reference, which may lead us to up to 14,000 years old language is Sinhala. That is, Sinhala is minimum 5,000 years old, and it can be tracked to up to 14,000 years old also, which means we are able to identify the age of a particular language scientifically only and only when you start reading Ramayana and these epics. With this, I will conclude the presentation. And now we'll go to one more session. Last year means 2020, when I did the World Ramayana, when I attended the World Ramayana conference, when I gave my presentation, at the end of the presentation, I asked one question to all the audience. So, see, we are coming here, we are doing presentations, and again, after a couple of years, again, we do some presentations. What is the plan of action, what we are doing, is what I asked you in 2020, and I would love to repeat the statement again. Where is the plan of action? So when I came in 2020, I told I will take the responsibility on the stage. I told I will take the responsibility in building the cultural relations between India and Sri Lanka. And as I promised, today I brought the Honorable Minister all the way from Sri Lanka. Okay, now Honorable Minister is here. Now let me know whether the World Ramayana Conference and others, how are we going to get into the administration, get into action. And sir, today we want you to give your comments on that. How can we cooperate, both the countries, both the states, both the territories, how can we cooperate and get the things into action? And we'll just pass on the call to Honorable Vinodji to give his comments on that.